After all the hype, the Alien X smoothie was a real disappointment.
It's hero time!
Swamp fire! Humongousaur!
Jet ray!
Rainstorm!
Spider monkey!
Chromate stone!
I was a massive Ben 10 fan during its heyday. I was locked in on new episodes every weekend. I strutted around school with that glorified Happy Meal toy of an Omnitrix. I poured countless hours into that one really good game on Cartoon Network's website, and despite being one of the best games they made for that site ever, they never made a sequel with more aliens, which made me really sad. This franchise is a $1 million idea. Oh, I'm sorry, a $7.5 billion idea. This kid got a Rolex that could transform him into 10 different aliens. And the roster isn't some E.T. go home BS. They're basically the Avengers consolidated to a wrist. As we all know, 10 aliens wasn't even the limit, as each season had new aliens trickle in more and more, leaving us with 22 aliens at the end of the original series. I mean, he lost Ghost Freak, which upset me as a kid, but it still counts. But by this point, we knew that the Omnitrix had at least 1 million aliens. Seeing only 22 wasn't gonna cut it. Thankfully, Manifaction knew this and acted accordingly, giving us 10 new aliens for the sequel series Ben 10 Alien Force. With the 10th alien propped up to be the biggest deal of the bunch, Alien X. And his debut was a certified flop. Now, I know Alien X has shooters out there, so please, just let me cook. Maybe after you'll want my head on a pike a little bit less. Please, join me as I unpack the buildup, reaction, and aftermath to the most powerful alien in the Omnitrix who just couldn't live up to expectations. This is the story of Alien X, the biggest disappointment in Ben 10. Before this little alien becomes the punching bag for this video, I need to make my stance clear. I believe that Alien X was a symptom of a much larger problem: Cartoon Network's over-reliance on Ben 10. This franchise became a cash cow pretty much immediately, and they knew that if they were going to measure up to their competitors, they had to milk it dry. It's not something you think about as a kid, but the fact they got out 4 seasons of this half-hour animated series in under 3 years is crazy. And immediately following that up with a sequel series that rolled out 26 episodes in a year is even crazier. Like, I think they had to be working on the final season of the original series and the first season of Alien Force at the same time. I don't believe the team behind Alien Force was given enough time to truly flesh out the aliens. And Alien X is the biggest example of this. When Alien Force premiered on April 18th, 2008, fans were greeted with a new theme song that gave us a rundown of all the new homies in the Omnitrix. But ooh, who's this guy? And why is he shrouded in mystery? What did he look like? What were his powers? For the next few months, these questions plagued my brain. And honestly, it got a little intense. I was having dreams about what this asshole looked like. When Alien Force dropped, there was of course a new Omnitrix for kids to beg their parents to throw money at. But this one really squeezed every last penny out of us by selling action figures of the new aliens that came with a translucent minifigurine to place on the Omnitrix, emulating the watch's hologram aesthetic. Each minifigurine would unlock a voice clip on the watch that matched each alien. But it was only a matter of time before people knew how to cheat the system and get different voice clips without owning the figure. So I had a dream where I was fidgeting around with the watch and ended up unlocking Alien X's voice clip. But since there wasn't an actual Alien X figure, in my dream, an actual hologram beamed out of the watch. And let me tell you, this Alien X dude looked crazy. As you'd probably imagine, this skyrocketed my expectations as a kid. I had to know what Alien X looked like. And the more we got acquainted with these 9 new aliens, the more the stakes for Alien X started to raise a bit. Which, no shade to the starter pack at all! I'm sure this is someone's favorite Pokemon gen. But remember when I said earlier that I think the aliens might have suffered from how fast they got this show out? Well, that's because most of these aliens feel like a spin on the original 22. Swampfire is Heat Blast and Wildvine. Echo Echo is Ditto and Benwolf. Big Chill is Ghost Freak and Artiguana. Chroma Stone is Diamond Head. You get the idea. Most of the new 10 didn't feel all that different from the old 10. They were mostly aesthetic changes. Alien X felt like our last hope for a truly unique alien to round out this generation of Ben 10. Of course, they dragged out the big reveal for the first half of the season, which nowadays is a breeze when you have all the episodes at your disposal. But back in 2008, that meant it got dragged out for months. And it was treated at the time as the season 1 finale, elevating it from a big deal to a really big deal. Alien Force premiered on April 18th, and the season finale wouldn't air until August 31st. That's over a summer's worth of suspense. And before inflation hit time itself, you actually felt those 4 months. As we were approaching the big day, Cartoon Network started to hype the hell out of it. Like, for a month straight, advertising a marathon of every episode of the season, leading up to the debut of Alien X, followed by a sneak peek of what they were calling the biggest thing to ever come to television. What? Were we finally getting the Edda and Eddie movie? Is it a huge Cartoon Network crossover? What could it be? I ended up liking the show, but this still made me mad.
Gotta stop that water. The time is any to give this one a try.
So as much as I want to pretend like Cartoon Network managed to keep Alien X secret until that fateful Labor Day weekend, the reality is, they let the cat out of the bag early. Not only were there people who already saw the episode early and shared some big spoilers online, but I swear, I remember watching a preview clip ahead of time that cut right to the chase and showed us what the big guy looked like. After staring at a shadow for 4 months, I finally got to see what Man of Action was cooking.
Well, that was anticlimactic.
Although I was still hyped as a kid, screaming, yelling, running around the computer, flinging shit everywhere, there was also a part of me that knew hiding this design was the first red flag. Don't get me wrong, I really like Alien X's design in isolation. The Celestialsapiens are practically gods with incomprehensible power, as if you were giving the Big Bang itself a physical body. Most sentient species in the Ben 10 universe omniverse are already humanoid, so it makes sense to me that this body would assume a simple humanoid form that the universe around it can comprehend. And the stars are just sick. If it's adjacent to the Tanami aesthetic, it's my jam. So it's sad the show undermined all of this, because again, for 12 episodes, Alien X was a silhouette in the theme song, raising expectations and prompting my imagination to run wild, only for its design to be the same thing but with like, a Fortnite skin? But I don't want to harp on this for too long, and looks are only half the appeal to an alien. What does he actually do? Well, how about everything?
Water-stopping motion carry! Surprise!
A device with as extraordinary a power was never meant to be wielded by an unpredictable and immature child.
And nothing at the same time. Alien X comes out of the gate swinging, reversing time itself in order to prevent an impending disaster. And this just happened to be the one Ben never tried before? This is like actually listening to that one song you always skip and realizing it's actually fire. Alright, underwhelming design forgiven. We're back in business. This guy is worth the wait. Ben, you alright, buddy?
That's why your shoes raggedy.
That's why your mama dead.
So here's the catch to Alien X. Celestialsapiens have 2 personalities inside of them, and those personalities have to be in agreement in order to use any of their powers. For Ben, Those two personalities are Serena and Bellicus. And they're basically the two-party system. They don't get much done. And now that Ben is in the picture, joining them is what I can only describe as either a mindscape or a different plane of existence. Paradox supports the latter. For all the weebs in the house, it reminds me a lot of the paths in Attack on Titan. For everyone else, it also kinda reminds me of the Astral Dimension in Black Panther. And if you haven't seen that, then look one of those up. Be a better nerd. Jesus. Serena and Bellicus view Ben as a tiebreaker for their debates, but they don't treat him as the voice of reason, someone with a valuable perspective. Instead, they just want him to take one of their sides. So while Gwen and Kevin are trying to defuse an intergalactic conflict, Ben is just hard-locked out of Alien X. They red ring a death in Alien! How the fuck does that work? There's not even a satisfying payoff. Ben just sees that the adventure is falling apart without him and forces these two goobers to release him. Swampfire ends up being the one who saves the day. You know, because he's a Charizard of Alien Force. Suffice to say, this just wasn't it as a kid, especially after months of anticipation. Now don't get me wrong, I like the message of Alien X. Ben has access to the most powerful race in the universe. Yet, it's practically useless because he's doomed to just vibe in a corner while his mind is trapped in your family's Thanksgiving dinner. It's not worth the cost, and he's better off becoming more adept at his other aliens, honing their skills, than trying to reason with Tweedledee and Tweedledum. But I still think the execution could have been better, that they could have found a way to capitalize on Alien X's risk factor without making this heavily marketed episode feel like a prank. Have Alien X affect Ben in other ways that makes it almost scary to use. Not just for Ben, but for the audience. For example, what if time within Alien X flowed differently from the real world? Bellicus and Serena can still have their yap off. It still takes forever to come to a consensus, but in the real world, it all happens in an instant. So whenever Alien X pops up, it's never for long, at least to the audience. But for Ben, he feels like he just spent an eternity caught in a back and forth, and it actually takes a toll on him. It messes with his perception of time, his memories, his age, his efficiency at other aliens, and it takes a minute for him to get back to normal. And the longer he's Alien X, the worse these drawbacks are. Essentially, Alien X is an alien that Ben can't handle. The more he uses it, the more his mind is scrambled. It's a last-ditch, in case of emergency transformation that could ultimately cost him his life. This would also make his interactions with Serena and Bellicus a lot more interesting because on one hand, he wants to be patient with them and help smooth things over between them. But on the other hand, every single second he spends in this void is destroying his brain. I think that's an appropriate cost for the ability to alter reality itself. But if that's too dark for ya, I got a lighter alternative that admittedly still has some intense implications. Time still flows differently and whatnot, so bro isn't stuck as a model sheet all episode. But Serena and Bellicus' presence lingers outside of Alien X for a period of time. Ben returns to his normal form, but for the next day or so, Serena and Bellicus are still in his head, popping up in reflections, whispering different answers while he's taking a math test. Maybe they're even influencing the aliens he turns into. He wanted Chromastone, but Bellicus wanted Humongosaur. You get the idea. This is a setup where there's still plenty of laughs to be had since these shows do tend to be very comedic, but there's still some dark undertones that communicate to the audience, maybe we should bench Alien X. I also now realize that part of my disappointment with Alien X stems from the fact that the show introduced a super OP alien that could only be used in dire situations just a year prior, in the TV movie Ben 10: Secret of the Omnitrix. I'm of course talking about Waybig, an alien whose name speaks for itself. We had no idea that this movie would introduce a brand new alien, let alone one that's freaking Ultraman! The movie implies that he was locked by Azimuth, which explains why Ben couldn't access him before. And despite Waybig being immensely powerful, it makes sense that Ben wouldn't be able to use him in a majority of situations because he's too fucking big. They did everything right with Waybig. A perfect reveal that came out of nowhere and felt like a grand transformation, something humans couldn't even scale to. And the fact this little guy was responsible for unlocking this big guy? Absolute cinema! Although it does beg the question why Waybig was locked while Alien X just took the temp slot when the watch simply recalibrated. Was Asmith trying to teach him a lesson in teamwork being the ultimate power? Because if so, he's a cornball. It's crazy how the execution and perception of these two aliens are like night and day. People love Waybig, while Alien X is a lot more divisive, and it's not hard to see why. Ben's most powerful alien shouldn't be lacking this hard in the practicality department. And the team behind the show knew they fumbled the bag.
The Alien X smoothie was a real disappointment. Kinda tastes like filler.
Come on, man!
The fan response to Alien X's debut was pretty much what you would expect based off of this video so far. People generally enjoyed the episode, but there was a unanimous disappointment around Alien X. You know, the reason people tuned in? The fact people still liked the episode is a testament to the characters and charm of the show, really. But a thought occurred to me while making this video. Obviously, kids who waited months for Alien X were going to be let down by the subversion. But what about people today, who get to watch the entire franchise in one sitting? And then I realized, people react to everything on YouTube now. There's gotta be blind reactions to Ben 10. That could be another way to gauge if Alien X was really as disappointing as I'm making him out to be. Sure enough, those reactions exist on YouTube, and I'll just let them speak for themselves.
Alien X!
Alien X?
This is the one they've been keeping a secret. What the fuck?
Oh my gosh, did he rewind time?
He rewound time!
15 minutes later.
I don't think that's...
I don't know.
Yeah, this didn't really feel like a finale. You know, I guess I was expecting something bigger.
Psych, nah, they enjoyed the episode, and they weren't let down by Alien X as much as viewers in 2008 were. Though they might have their expectations set a little too high.
I can see that going one of two ways, where it's like Ben learns to control it, or they could become the big bad.
Well, I'm not sure if it was purely because of backlash, or if it was just because they had no idea how to bring him back, but Alien X never appeared in Alien Force again. And that bit from Ultimate Alien, while poking fun at fans just as much as it is itself, it really did get me thinking. Was Alien X just filler? A temp slot on the new Omnitrix that's kinda just there? I mean, even in Ultimate Alien, Alien X returns in an episode where the gang voyages out to the Forge of Creation, the source of the universe's greatest power, a place where ideas become real, where other Celestialsapiens are born. And you know what Alien X does in an episode that explores his point of origin? Nothing! Ben transforms into the nigga as a way to bait viewers through the theme song and commercial break. He doesn't make any progress with Bellicus and Serena, and like 10 seconds into being Alien X, Paradox pops in, tells him this is a waste of time, and then the episode really gets going. What's the point of living in this kid's arm if you're not gonna do anything? At least pay some bills! Now, to give credit where it's due, I think after 4 years of Alien X being a total bum, Man of Action finally had enough and sauced him up for Omniverse, where he actually starts to do things and is absolutely jacked with a new chin. This was at a point where I fell off with Ben 10. Omniverse had a horrid airing schedule. A lot of episodes premiered at like, 6 in the morning? It was clear that since Adventure Time took over, Ben 10 was no longer a top priority for the network. But I watched these episodes for the video, and wow, they put their best foot forward to redeem Alien X. Very early into Omniverse, the world gets obliterated by the Staples button.
That was easy.
And Alien X, no joke, recreates the entire universe. Like, going forward, that's not our Kevin, that's not our Gwen, that's not our Max. They all died, bruh. Everything and everyone around Ben is just a one-to-one recreation. Alien X did that. But since nobody remembers that happening, they all deny such a feat existed. Until all the way down the road in an episode called The Universe vs. Tennyson, where a bunch of Celestialsapiens pull up to put Ben on trial for recreating the universe. It's a really fun watch, and it leads to Alien X finally throwing hands. Well, actually, he's getting kind of curb stomped until Ben convinces Bellicus and Serena to give him full control of Alien X. But then he finally starts throwing hands. It's the kind of anime bullshit that I love to see spill over into my cartoons. Alien X was not only cool, but finally useful. Finally worthy of being an alien that's hyped up as a big deal with reasonable drawbacks. Because even when Ben gets full control, he doesn't know how to utilize Alien X's power to its full potential, and he has to get crafty with what he can do. That's the good stuff. That's what I wanted to see from Alien X after all of these years. Too little too late? And not really. If anything, I'm glad people who were disappointed by Alien X as a kid can dive into like 3 episodes of him being cool as an adult. Or at least they would, if HBO Max didn't take off every show but the original series and the reboot. Oh yeah, is Alien X in the reboot? You know what? I'm tired, you're tired. Let's just pretend like Omniverse ended his legacy on a high note. Did I just dedicate nearly 20 minutes of video to bitching about something that mildly annoyed me as a kid? Yes, but with a purpose! Alien X is one of Ben's most memorable aliens for all the wrong reasons. And I think there's a reason he only became cool in Omniverse. If you ask me, Alien X was a victim of corporate greed, forced to fill a slot on the Omnitrix to sell toys instead of being given the proper amount of time in Season 1 of Alien Force to develop him as the big deal he truly is. By the time Omniverse rolled around, the character had been around for years, so they finally had time to sit down, really think about it, and utilize him in a meaningful way, even if a lot of fans weren't around to see it. But as always, these are just my thoughts, and I would love to hear yours. Did Alien X ruin your childhood, cause your parents divorce, and burn your college applications? Or did you like him as a kid, you were never let down, and I'm just bugging? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this video, please throw it a like. If you didn't like it, I guess leave a dislike, goddamn. And keep the conversation going over on Twitter and Instagram at AllSharkVox. And subscribe to the Roundtable for more great cartoon content. And hit the bell, please. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have an awesome day. And I'll see you next time. Peace.
Just bend or something.